Okay, so tonight we are going to learn about Ahab and Jezebel. I have to tell you that I hate the anglicization of the Hebrew words like Abraham, Isaac, and everything. I think with this one word, Izebel, I think Jezebel is better. There's something, no, that doesn't have a ring, like a more of a witchy ring than Jezebel. Right, yeah, it's a mamish. And it could be because I think she was a shiksa. I think she was a shiksa.
The word Jezebel has earned its reputation as well.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But leading up to tonight's Perakim, there really was a time of great mayhem in Yisrael, meaning in the 10 tribes. When we say Yisrael, we mean the 10 tribes. You have after Baasha died. Baasha was the king who had that aborted attempt to defeat Asa. His son Elah became king, and Elah was assassinated. Elah was assassinated by who assassinated him? I think I remember there was a guy who was king for who knows how long. He was assassinated by Zimri. I saw a gentleman named Zimri who was in charge of half of the cavalry. Okay, he was a high officer in the army. He assassinated him. Well, the officer of the other half, Omri, was not very happy with that, and he was not very happy that he assassinated the king. So he went and he led his forces against Zimri, and he laid siege on Zimri, who was in the palace, Omri, and when Zimri saw that his defense was futile, he burnt the palace down around himself. He was king for 7 days. All right, not very, didn't have a richas yomim. Then the question is, who becomes the next king? So there was a dispute between this Omri, who was the most powerful military person, and somebody named Tivni, about who would become king, and ultimately the people followed Omri. It says Vayomas Tivni. Tivni died, and Omri became king. Now that's a very fatal, very important thing that Omri became king. And since Rashi quotes a medrash that one of the things that pushed Omri over the hump against Tivni was that Asa, who was the Melech of Yehuda at the time and very respected, Asa did a shidduch with Omri's daughter. So Omri's daughter married Asa's son Yehoshaphat, who was going to be the next king. Okay, so Omri's daughter, Omri and Asa were mechatanim over here. So between these arch enemies, the Yisrael and Yehuda, right? Gemach chasanet, says Amen. Now, Omri had a son, or at least who knows how many children he had, but besides this one who became Rebbetzin Yehoshaphat, he had a son named Ahab.
I just have a general question. And all this killing, destruction, I mean, was there Torah learning going on at the same time, or were people Shabbos? I mean, how do we understand all this mayhem going on? I mean, from you didn't have it in Torah, you only have it here.
How could our nation have accepted that?
That what? How could our nation have accepted that? Now we don't find it in Yehuda. We don't find this kind of these coup d'etats and the assassinations of kings in Yehuda. The succession in Yehuda, for the most part, is clean. And even when the king was assassinated, as will happen later on in Sefer Melachim, he still succeeded by his son, not like somebody else has taken over. But Yisrael was a mess. They were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. And there was a lot of corruption. And I think your observation is the observation. It was nice. You want to know what these people keep Shabbos, were they putting on tefillin? I would say yes. And I think we have some support for that. I would say yes. We'll even see something, maybe a little bit about that tonight.
And yet you still had all this.
You still had all this going on, yeah. Yeah, and you still had all this going on. That easily understandable. A lot of things are not understandable. Who understands Avodah Zarah?
Well, we know we don't understand Avodah Zarah.
Right.
I'll tell us that
The Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah was bottled. No.
it was bottled. We
Right.
don't understand.
Right.
But the Yetzer Hara is one thing. We're killing the Adam, the Avera.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
different than Adam.
Yeah. Now, but a lot of these assassinations, like the assassinations of the family of Yeravam, and that was decreed by Navi, right? And that the corpses will be eaten by the dogs and not come to Kavura. And Basha, who did the killing, so same thing happened to his family. Like the Medrash says that, if you would have been from, then that would have justified your killing of Yeravam's family. But if you're following in his footsteps, so who needed you? So therefore so they got the same punishment. They got the same punishment. But yeah, it's nishpashit. Okay, so we find ourselves now in a situation where Omri's son Achav takes over. Omri's son Achav takes over, and the Navi describes, beginning in Pasuk of Tes, and he was king for 38 years. He became king while Asa was Melech of Yehuda, and Achav ben Omri. He was king for 22 years. And he said he did worse than anybody before him. If you look at Pasuk Lamed Aleph, we're in Perak Tes Zayin. In Pasuk Lamed Aleph, and he says, "Vayikach Isha es Izevel bas es Baal Melech Tzidonim." He took for a wife Izevel, the daughter of Esbaal, the king of Tzidonim, and he worshipped the Baal. And Sidon is on what we call now Lebanon.
But they were goyim?
They were goyim. It seems they were goyim. So that she was a shiksa. It doesn't say that he was Megayer her. Who could have possibly been Megayer her? Does that mean, this I'm not sure of, but does that mean that his son who took over, Achav's son who took over, Yoram, was he a shegitz? But I don't think it says who Yoram's mother was. I'm not sure. So Achav could have had many wives. He could have had many wives, or maybe his son was. She also doesn't seem the maternal type, Isabel. So I don't know. Okay, but here is the most amazing thing on the intro to our story. Really is the last pasuk in Perak Tes Zayin. And it says, B'yamav, in his days, in Achav's days, Bana Chiel Beiso Eli. Chiel from Beisel. A gentleman named Chiel in Beisel built Yericho. He built Yericho. The last pasuk in Perak Tes Zayin. Perak Tes Zayin, pasuk Lamed Aleph. If you have Art Scroll, it's page 166. B'yamav, in his days, in the days of Achav, Bana Chiel Beiso Eli es Yericho. Chiel from Beisel built up Yericho. Ba'aviram b'choro yisda, when he laid the foundation, his son, his b'chor, firstborn Aviram, died. Uvisguv tzi'irai hitziv delaseha, and when he completed the doors, completed the project, his youngest son died. And Chazal tell us, in between, many sons died. Kidvar Hashem asher diber b'yad Yehoshua ben Nun, like the word of Hashem that was spoken in the hand of Yeshua ben Nun, because when Yeshua ben Nun decreed that the Yericho should be cherem, he decreed it should never be rebuilt, and he said, whoever will rebuild it will bury his firstborn when he lays the foundation, and will bury his youngest when he completes the project.
Is that cherem in effect today also?
So the cherem was to build it. And it's no problem once it's built to live in it.
Right.
The cherem is on the builder. On the builder. That's all that the cherem was. The Perakim say that the cherem was on the builder, because we do find that there was a community in Yericho later. He built it, and he's the one who paid the price.
It's only against the Jews. It's not for any non-Jews who built it, right?
I would imagine so. Yeshua wanted the very first conquest in Eretz Yisrael not to be a personal conquest. This is not for you to enjoy. It's not for you to think. It's all cherem l'Hashem. This was l'shem shamayim. We have to make sure that we control ourselves and we restrain. We know the terrible things that happened when Achan took from the cherem of Yericho, and Yoshua put this curse on the Cherem of Yericho. Now this is what happens. So in the first place, this is amazing how somebody like Chiel could possibly why wasn't he afraid of the curse, and why didn't he stop once he saw that this first undone? So open up the booklets to page 48. And let's look at the Malbim. The Malbim gives a little bit of an introduction to the era on page 48. So the Malbim says, Biyamav bana Chiel. Adata, until this point, Hagam, even though she'ovdu agolim, even though they worship the golden calves, lo pokru adayon, pokru like apikoros, they did not reject it, b'chol shiroshe ho'emuna, in all of the roots of belief in Hashem. V'hoyu yureim, and they were afraid mipnei ha'shavua, because of the oath, v'ho'ela, and the v'yo'ola, and the curse, shel Yoshua. V'yata, now, listen to this. She'ro'u, they saw she'achov oseh kol hato'evos. Achav is doing all of these abominations. V'ein Hashem manisho. Here you have people, like Michael was saying. From people, they went to shul, they put on the tefillin, and they said Kriya Shema, and it says in Kriya Shema, right, that if you're going to worship other gods, that the Shemayim is not going to give rain, and the earth will dry up, and terrible things will happen to you. And look at this Achav. Look what he's doing. Lepsichatog, and he's doing all abominations, all avodah zarah, and nothing's happening. So we don't have to be afraid. So kafru behashgacha, they denied in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hashgacha. Because see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not involved. U'b'nevuah, and also in the nevuah. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's nevuah, and it's not coming true. V'lo choshu, and they were not concerned. Al kilalas Yehoshua. L'chein therefore bana es Yericho. He said, I'm going to show them. I'm going to build Yericho. The Hagam, listen, this is the amazing part, which is almost incomprehensible. Even though Sheroah Shekilalas Yeshua Niskaima, Ba'aviram Beno, even though he saw that Yeshua's curse was fulfilled with his eldest son Aviram, Leishos Libai Gam Lazois. No, Leishos Libai did not place his heart on this. V'talahu b'mikra, and he says, listen, it's a coincidence. People could delude themselves. Until it ended up that with his youngest son Seguv, it's a coincidence. No, listen, there was a plague going on. His son Aviram was not the only one that died. Other people died. The second one died in the car accident. These things happen. He kept on rationalizing and justifying himself. V'davar zeh, and this issue of Chiel Hutza'ah was placed El Hasipar Abba Achrav, to the story that comes Me'inyan Eliyahu regarding Eliyahu. So enter Eliyahu into the picture. Where does Eliyahu enter the picture? Eliyahu went to be Menachem Ovel Chiel. At the same time that he went to be Menachem Ovel Chiel, the king shows up, Achav. Achav shows up.
This is in Israel, right?
What?
This is in
Israel. Yeah. Eliyahu Hatishbi. Eliyahu HaGilodi. Eliyahu is from Gilad. He's from the 10 tribes.
He lived among the 10 tribes.
Seems, wherever he lived, we'll soon see. We'll see. So, hold off. So, Eliyahu meets Achav by the Nicham Avelim. And Achav makes a remark to Eliyahu. He says, I see that God seems to be more concerned with the curses of Yehoshua, of his servants, than his own curses. Because look, he ain't doing nothing to me for worshiping Avodah Zarah. And that's the intro to our story. But before we get into the intro to our story, for 6 years, I had the tremendous zechus, and I probably had no idea what zechus it was at the time, like most things, to hear Musa Shmusim from Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, Zichron Livracha. 6 years. From 1968 to 1974, every Sunday at 6 o'clock, I Kimat did not miss, and he had a cycle of 3 years. He had a 3-year cycle that he repeated. And and even within the cycle, there was a lot of repetition with different spins. So I had this chus You hear a lot. No, Musa Shmuzin in general, but he quoted a lot from Tanakh. He knew Tanakh. So he spoke a lot about Chiyuv. Chiyuv was one of his favorite subjects because a lot of his Shmuzin were about human nature. A lot of the shmuzin were about human nature. He spoke a lot about kavod, just as totally irrelevant, but one of his best lines ever. Because you see, the people read Sichos Musar, but if you didn't see him there and hear him, it's just not the same thing. And he speaks about, just like he speaks about kavod hameduma, right? Delusionary kavod that people have, and most kavod is delusionary. We delude ourselves by getting kavod. He says, imagine a yid gets hagba, person gets hagba, and he lifts up the Sefer Torah. Es wird warm in Herzen. It becomes warm in his heart. He says, Fran noch an andere, was kennt ton Hagba so wie ich? Is there anybody else in the world who can do Hagba like I do Hagba? This page, like it's such a basic insight into human nature. A lot of his shmuzin were full of these insights into human nature. So he speaks about Chiyuv, like how is it shaykh? How is it shaykh that Chiyuv? So he has a few approaches. I don't think anything is totally satisfactory because it's beyond belief. But the two approaches that I remember, one is he used to speak about or v'choshech shebe'odam, the ability of a human being to reach or, the highest levels of kedusha and taira and corresponding to that, and inversely to that, to reach the depths of Cheshach. And when people have decided on the path of sin, they've decided to go on a bad derech, then it's just a downhill nosedive into Tumah. And he brings an interesting example. He says, how did Shlomo HaMelech know that one of these two women, the one the child was not hers, would say, cut the kid in half? How do you know that? How does Shlomo b'chachmasa know? No, come on, okay. I see I've gone too far. I wanted to steal the kid away from the other person, the other lady, but this is going too far. I'm not going to get it. Shlomo Melech knew. No. If she is capable of brazenly going over to a woman that she knew and say, this is my child, is not yours, your child is the dead one, and she's gone all the way. She's not stopped. They have no brakes. Once you embark on that nosedive into Tumah, there are no brakes. There are no brakes. And Shlomo Melech knew that. If she's doing this, she's gone all the way. And she tells it here to Chiyuv. The other approach that I heard him take was this terrible midah that we all have of never admitting that we're wrong, of always justifying our actions in the most stubborn way possible. I couldn't have been wrong. No way I was wrong. No way I was wrong to start building Yericho. His first son died. But people justify their things, the stubbornness of their approach. So it's not easy. But I'll tell you something on the side that makes it to me a little bit easier to understand Chiyuv. And I'll tell you an interesting side over here about Yericho. The Gemara at the end of Sanhedrin, Gemara has a Messiah that Yeshua's curse was against building this city, no matter what you call it. You can call it St. Paul, but if you build it over here, it's Osir. Or to build any city anywhere and call it Yericho. So the Gemara has a Messiah that Chiyuv did not build it on the original site, but he insisted on calling it Yericho, which was also Osir. So it makes hearing a little bit, and maybe he didn't accept the Best Din's interpretation of Yeshua's Kololo. But I'll tell you, I'm not afraid of Yeshua's curse. I'm not afraid of Yeshua's curse. That's why he did it. So I didn't bring it in, but I have it's in the booklets that the boys have on Yehoshua. The photocopy of a New York Times article, 1993, says something. Believers score about Yericho. One of the more prominent archaeologists of the mid-20th century was a woman named Kathleen Kenyon. Kenyon, Kenyon, Kathleen Kenyon, a guy, and she dug, she did a lot of work around Yericho, and she came to the conclusion that the biblical narrative is not true, because she found no evidence of there ever being a wall there that collapsed, or any of the things in the biblical story. Okay, so this article has that the 1993, I think it was 1991, the early 1990s, fellow came up and proved that she was digging in the wrong place. She was digging in the wrong place. That was the theme of the article. So I was thinking, I wonder if you could still sue the Gemara. Maybe she was digging in Chiyul Zirichai, which she dafka built not on the site of the first Yericho. Okay, we could give a terrorist stick for Kathleen Kenyon that she was an Isha Chashuva. Okay. So what happens there? So after Eliyahu Hanavi hears from Achav, God doesn't care if we worship Avodah Zarah, even though it's written in the Torah that the Otzar es Hashemayim. So look at the first pasuk in Perakim Zayin. Vayomer Eliyahu Hatishbi Mitayshave Gilad. Eliyahu Hatishbi, they say, is from the name, that's the name of his city, from the dwellers of Gilad. Gilad was a section, Eber HaYarden, Elachav. Chai Hashem Elokei Yisrael, I swear by God, the Lord of Israel, Asher Omadeti Lefonov, before whom I stand. So by our scroll translates it, before whom I stand. Im Yehia Hashanim Ha'ela Atalo Motor, Ki Im Lefi Devoroi. Whether there'll be any Tal Umotor, only upon my say-so. Okay, so it's mashma that Eliyahu did this on his own. It's mashma did this on his own. Decree that there should be no rain. It doesn't say, Achav, Ko Amar Hashem, so said Hashem, Hashem told me to tell you. It's not the classical articulation of Nevuah. He's saying, I swear by Hashem, you think the Torah doesn't come true? I'm going to show you.
And doesn't he know that the key to rainfall is not given to the hands of man?
What?
Doesn't the Gemara say the key of rainfall
Yes.
is not given to the hands of man? And he
Right?
was taking it?
And he was taking it. Eliyahu took a lot of privileges, as we'll see.
But he said no. So why does he have to even come out and say something like that? I mean, a Navi's job is just to say what Hashem tells him to say.
Yeah. Now, okay, so let's talk about let's talk about who Eliyahu was for a minute. Okay, so
I'm shocked that there was someone like Eliyahu who lived among that structure.
yeah.
And all this stuff is going on, all these killings.
Oh, so where was he while all this was happening? Okay, so that we'll have to see. I'm not sure we'll get to it today, but we'll have to see. But if you look at page 49, I'm not going to go through the Gemara, but just for those of you who want to peruse the Gemara on page 49, so the Gemara has that I think it was Rabbi Bar Chana. It's on the previous page of the Gemara who it was. He encounters Eliyahu in a cemetery. This Amora. I think it was Rabbi Bar Chana. He encounters him in the cemetery. So you look at the second line of the Gemara in the brackets. So just see a little bit. Omar Lei, so he told him, Lav Kohen hu mar? Are you not a Kohen? And why did he think he's a Kohen? Look at, I have the Rashi encircled. Lav Kohen mar, di iko liman di Omar. Because there is an opinion that Eliyahu Pinchas. That Eliyahu was actually Pinchas, who obviously had tremendous longevity. And then you're talking about your question, Michael, of where was he? Where has he been for the last, quite a few decades? Right? Eliyahu Pinchas, d'chsiv bei kanoi kinesi. I have been zealous. B'chein b'Pinchas says b'kanoi es kinasi, when he killed the nasi of Shimon. There he did on his own. Pinchas did it on his own. And here, as we'll see later on, In the few Perakim from here, when the Kadosh Baruch Hu was talking to Eliyahu says also, Kano Kinesi, I've been zealous for Hashem. And here, Kano Kinesi, I've been zealous for Hashem.
So when did he change his name from Pinchas to Eliyahu, according to his shots?
I don't know.
And why would he change it?
I don't know. That Pinchas did consult with Moshe Rabbeinu. That's true. He did consult, but he still did it on his own. Hashem didn't tell him. That was the halacha. Moshe Rabbeinu had forgotten the halacha, but it wasn't al pi nevuah. He did it out of zealousness for Hashem. So the Yahud decrees that there's not going to be rain for 3 years. So now the question is, who was Eliyahu? We'll see a little soon. But so Eliyahu answers him, what are you doing in the Beis HaKvaros? So he says, this is a non-Jewish Beis HaKvaros. Therefore, that's not a problem for me. The graves of Goyim are not mitame. That's also not so pashut al pi halacha, but there's definitely such an opinion that the corpse of a Goy, Tumas Meis, is only mitame b'maga, by touching, not be'ohel. Not be'ohel. Okay, so what happens next is Eliyahu runs away because it stopped raining. And there was a drought. And as we'll see, Eliyahu's poster was most wanted person in every post office in the Shomron, because they were out to get him. Got to catch this Eliyahu. It's interesting that Achav believed firmly that it was Eliyahu's decree that it did not rain. He didn't think it was a coincidence. That Eliyahu said there's not going to be any rain, and as we'll see, there wasn't rain for 3 years. That's a heck of a long time for no rain. So Hashem tells Eliyahu, okay, go to a place called Nachal Kris, which is near the Yarden. A Nachal is generally a brook, but usually a dry water. I mean, Nachal is usually a seasonal thing. It's just for rainfall. And he says you'll have water in the Nachal, and I have commanded the ravens, Esa Orvim, in Pasuk Gimel, Esa Orvim tzivisi l'chaltalecha sham. The ravens brought him food. Right? So he's hiding there in Nachal Kris, and the ravens, it says, are bringing him, look at Pasuk Vav, the Orvim mevim lo lechem uvasar ba'boker v'lechem uvasar ba'erev, u'min ha'nachal yishteh. Okay, but then the Nachal dries up, because the Nachal is a seasonal creek, and there's no rain. Kilo hayageshem baritz. So it's not okay. Now maybe you can help me. I don't know pshat. In Rashi in Chumash, Noach, the first creature that Noach says to see im yovsha oretz is the orev. Right, and the orev doesn't leave, doesn't go. Rashi quotes a medrash. The medrash says that the orev didn't go because Hashem said, I have a different shlichus, a different mission for the Orev to do, b'shas atziras geshamim, at the time when the rain will be held back, in the times of Eliyahu, to feed Eliyahu. That's a Rashi. So I'm focusing on Rashi's choice of words. I didn't look up the Medrash in its primary source, but Rashi goes in, b'shas atziras geshamim. There's a contrast to the Mabul. The Mabul is a time of too much rain, right? It's not the Orev's mission here, but it's the Orev's mission, b'shas atziras geshamim, when the rain will be withheld. I have a mission for him then. What's the connection? What is that guy? Every year I go, what is the connection between the Orev not going out by the Mabul? I need him for, it's obviously not a literal thing, what's the connection between the Mabul destroying the world by too much rain, and Eliyahu Ke'ilu destroying the world by withholding rain, and the role of the raven, the Orev in this? If anybody could come up with a pshat, I'd be very, very grateful. I'm hitting brick walls every time I try to think of something. So it's something to work on. At least remember it for Parshas Noach. What?
You're in Hollywood, you don't want to have typecast, it's only...
Okay. Okay, so he's finished with Nachal Chris. He's got to leave. There's no water. So what does he do next in Pasuk Ches? Hashem tells him to go to a place called Tzorfas, not France, right? Asher L'Tzidoin, which is next to Tzidon. It's interesting. Still also not sure what the connection is, but Izevel came from Tzidon. He tells him to go to Tzidon, and you should live there. And I have commanded over there an Isha Almana, a widow. From now on, she's called the Almana Tzorfatis, right? The Almana from Tzorfas, L'chal Kalecha, to sustain you. So he comes to this place, Tzorfas, right, to the city, and there's a widow who is chopping wood, right? And he calls out to her. Rashi says, why did he call out to her? Because Hashem didn't tell him who the widow was, that he learned from Eliezer. Eliezer's looking for a woman, and he says, whichever one is going to offer me water. So he wants to see if this almana, in the time of great drought and famine, is going to offer him water. So, and he calls out to her, and he says, Kichino li ma'at mayim bakli v'yeshte. Give me a little bit of water and let me drink. And she goes to get the water. And then he says in Pasuk Yud Aleph, Lichino li pas lechem biyodech. I see you have some bread. Give me a little bit. Okay? So Vatomer, she says, Pasuk Yud Beis, Chai Hashem Elokecha, I swear by Hashem your Lord, Im yeshli ma'og, if I have as much as a cookie, Kim melok hav kemach bakad, I have a spoonful of flour in this jug, Uma'at shemen batzapachas, and a little bit of oil in this jug, right? And I am chopping 2 pieces of wood, so I can cook this little bit of flour with the oil for me and my son, and we'll eat it, and then we're going to die because we have nothing else. So in Pasuk Yud Gimel, Vayomer le'Eliyahu, Al tiri, don't be afraid. Bo bikam asichid varech. Do what you want to do. Yeah, cook, make an uga, make cookies, whatever you're doing. Ach asili misham uga ketana varishona. First give me an uga ketana. First give me, before you take for you and your son, give me first. And then you take for yourself and your son.
Did you know
Okay?
who this was now?
Weiß nicht. Then, but he says, Ki choy omar Hashem Elokei Yisrael. I mean, it could be, because Eliyahu was a very recognizable personality, had a very unique look. He was hairy, and he was a very recognizable person, it seems. He was hairy. Yeah, Ish Seyar. After sings Miras and Matzai Shabbos, Eliyahu Navi. That's all about him. So then he tells her on Pasuk Yudal, Ki choy omar Hashem Elokei Yisrael, Kad hakemach lo sichle. The jug of flour will never cease to be, v'tzapachas Hashem eloi techsar, and the jar of oil will never stop. Ad yom teis Hashem geshem al pnei hadama, until it rains, and that's what happens. That from that little jug of flour and the jar of oil, she had enough until the famine and the drought was over. Now, why did Eliyahu tell her, first give me some of the flour? If he was a Kohen, because she had to give challah. That taste was there in Bava Metzia, brings down from Talmud Yerushalmi and from Midrashim that he was not a Kohen. Some say he was from Shevet Gad. Some say he was from Shevet Binyamin. That there is definitely an opinion in the Medrash that he was not a Kohen. So if he was not a Kohen, then why did he tell her to give him first? So it's interesting. I was giving the shiur to the boys. A bunch of boys raised their hand and had a very intuitive shot. In order for the miracle to happen, she had to do chesed first. Nice approach. It's not what Tosfos says. Tosfos quotes a Medrash. The Medrash says that he was being merames to her, this son of hers, who's going to play a major role in this parak. he says, was the neshama of Mashiach ben Yosef, and he's meramis to her that he has to come before Mashiach ben Yosef. By Mashiach times, that Eliyahu will come before Mashiach ben Yosef. There's that the sequence of events will be Eliyahu, Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. That's what the Taisus calls a medrash. It's interesting that the Rambam says we don't know what the sequence of events will be. Rambam in Hilchos Melachim. But the medrash says, that Taisus quotes, that the sequence of events will be Eliyahu before Mashiach ben Yosef, and he was merames this to her by saying, give me first. I come first before the child. What?
What is it, him coming before Mashiach ben Yosef have to do with him getting?
That was a remez. This was a remez. How is that a remez to her? That before you feed your son, feed me, because I am coming first to redeem the nation. Before your son could be a redeemer, I have to be a redeemer.
But not now.
Not now. In the future. It's a remez for the future.
In previous shiur,
Yes.
mentioned that there was a minute about giving a gift to a Navi before. They were talking about Sholom, and wanted to give a gift.
Right.
They wanted to give her food, or it was music.
Yeah.
Like that. The idea is that in order
To connect, in order to connect.
flowing, right?
Interesting. But if that's very, very good thinking. The question is, if that was the only thing, she would have said, I'm not interested in Navi now. We're hungry, and we don't have enough for ourselves. I'm not going to the Rebbe for kvittel now. I got more important things. I got to feed my kid. So that perhaps would not have been enough of a motivation. But you may be right that ultimately was part of the connection. But then, why did it have to be first? Why did it have to be first? It didn't have to be first, perhaps. Okay, listen, you guys eat. I know you're very hungry. But then give me something, because I have a nevuah for you. That perhaps could have been that way. Here, Michael, if you take a look at the Taisus on page 49, this one, I'll show you where it is. So you see the Taisus in the right-hand column. So, 3 lines from the bottom of the narrow lines in Taisus. 3 lines from the bottom of the narrow lines. Omer lahem oso tinok Mashiach ben Yosef hoyo. V'remez romazti la'olam sh'ani bo techila. Okay, whatever you want to do with it, but that's the Taisus. Okay, let's go further. Who is this Eliyahu Hanavi that we all know about? So there's an amazing Chasam Sefer. We have conflicting things about Eliyahu Hanavi. On one hand, we have a Medrash, we have a Mesorah. By a bris, we set up a Kiseh Shel Eliyahu, that Eliyahu is called the Malach HaBris. He comes to every bris. And at the same time, we also know that we say Tishbi Yitaris Kushios Ve'abayis. We have Teku in the Gemara. That when the Gemara doesn't know the answer to something, where it says Tishbi, Eliyahu Tishbi will come, and that should be a violation of the very important klal, fundamental of Lo B'Shamayim Hi. A malach can't come and tell us what the halacha is. We're not going to listen. The Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to human beings, not to malachim. Even when the voice comes out from heaven, Rabbi Yeshua stands up and says, Lo B'Shamayim Hi. It's not in the heavens. It's totally up to us. If he's not a malach, how's he showing up at every bris? And we say he's called the Malach HaBris. He's called the Malach HaBris. So there's a Chasam Sefer. There's a Chasam Sefer. So the Chasam Sefer says like this. The Chasam Sefer is amazing. Chasam Sefer. It's over here, but I'm not going to read in the text. The Shal Teshuvah's Chasam Sefer. He says that Eliyahu's, even though we're going to learn later on, it's going to take us quite a few programs. It's like the beginning of Melachim Beis, when Eliyahu goes up in the flaming chariot into the Shemayim, but that Eliyahu never went up with his guf to the Shemayim. He says his neshama went up to the Shemayim, and his guf is preserved in Gan Eden in this world. The Gan Eden that, Kadosh Baruch Hu put up the Lahat HaCherev HaMisapeches, so no surveyor and no GPS should be able to find Gan Eden. And his guf is in Gan Eden. Now, Eliyahu has a dual role. When his neshama is hanging loose with the Malachim, and he has a role as a malach, such as the malach habris. And would Eliyahu come as a form of a malach, somebody in the dream, and to tell them what the halacha is, we would reject it. But Eliyahu is a malach habris, that's why he's able to show up as multiple brisas at the same time in different parts of the world. No problem. He says, but there are times that Eliyahu was sent on the shlichus as a human, and then Eliyahu's neshama is mislabish with his guf from Gan Eden, and then he comes as a human. The Chasam Sefer, and for example, he says this Gemara in Bava Metzia. Rabbi Bar Bachana was not talking to a malach; he's talking to a human being whom he recognized as Eliyahu. And he says, when Eliyahu comes in his guf as a human being, there's no reason why he should be different than any other great sage. And if a great sage tells us what the halacha is and resolves a dilemma in halacha, we'll listen to him. And that's why Teku is not a problem, because it's not Eliyahu as a malach habris. The Yeshiva is learning Mesivta Kedushin this year. Rabbi Chana Basserman has a very interesting, I'm not going to go into it, it's a very interesting discussion of whether or not Eliyahu's wife was allowed to remarry. Because the Mishnah says that a woman is released from marriage either beget or v'misas habal. But he says, what does that mean, misas habal? Does it just mean the absence of a husband enables her to get married, or just like a get is a process that allows her to remarry, the misa of the husband is something that allows her to remarry. If Eliyahu never died, then she would never have been allowed to remarry. That's a whole shtickle Hadeshus Eliyahu. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, most of the Rebbeim spoke it out. Okay, so this is Eliyahu Navi. We're going to be dealing a lot with Eliyahu Navi. Now, then the rest of the parak is this special child of the Ishat Sarfatis dies, and Eliyahu performs Techiyas HaMesim. What's the purpose of that? What was the purpose of that miracle? First of all, what's interesting is when her son dies, she comes to Eliyahu and she's angry at him. And she says, it's all your fault because you came here. So Rashi quotes a medrash that says, before you came, I was the Ganset Tzadekis over here. I was the Ganset Tzadekis. Now when you came, I'm a nobody. So therefore, obviously, Kadosh Baruch Hu, does not treating me the same way after you came, because I'm not number one in righteousness anymore in this area. I pale in righteousness in comparison to you. So, right, I guess God marks on the curve was her taina. I guess that was her taina. So Eliyahu Navi does Techiyas HaMesim. What was the purpose of this? Like, why did this have to happen? And if you're going to go into the whole Mashiach ben Yosef and the Eliyahu Navi business, and the Mashiach ben Yosef is going to die, so it could be it's connected with that. And the Techiyas HaMesim happens after Mashiach ben Yosef. It could be, but if that's not the approach, what was the purpose of Eliyahu making this miracle of Techiyas HaMesim? I'm not quite sure.
Was it in any way as amends for taking part of the flower from her? That she accused him that I only have some flowers to live on. She gives it to him.
Yeah, but why was this important that her son died and Eliyahu did Techiyas HaMesim? To show us that Eliyahu could do Techiyas HaMesim? Yeah, but why is that important? I'm not sure I have a great handle on that. Not sure. Okay, this is just one other short thing. Interesting is actually from the Or HaChaim HaKodesh. At least I found it interesting, so I'll share it. Now, the Or HaChaim in Chumash, I'll tell you where it is. Okay, when he comes to the Ishat Sarfatis, So his language is... One second. I thought the language was... Okay, no, it's not the language here. Okay, but it's a very famous few psukim in Parshas Bahar, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that if you're going to ask, what am I going to eat during Shemitah? So he says, so the Torah says, B'tzivisi es berkosi, I will command my bracha in the Tvua, and in the 6th year it will make enough for 3 years, for years 6, 7, and 8. Right? That's what the pasuk says. Orach Chaim HaKadosh says that the bracha was not that it was a triple crop. But he says the bracha for Shemitah is like the bracha of Eliyahu and the Isha Tzarfatis. That there won't be anything unusual in the produce. Right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu created there's a nature. The earth, the sea has a gavul, doesn't go onto land, and the earth has a certain amount that it produces, but it'll last for 3 years, even though normally it would last for 1 year. And he says, like the bracha that Eliyahu gave to the Isha Tzarfatis and the Karakemach and the Tzapichas Hashemen, and we'll see later on, also Elisha does the same thing with Eshes Avadia, and we'll see. Okay, all right, let me tell you something quickly on the Parsha. Next Wednesday night is Hanukkah, so we're not going to have shiur next Wednesday night. You know. No, next Wednesday night is the first night of Hanukkah. Oh, and so is the Wednesday following. So, what do people think? I think that, they're not exactly banging, it's not exactly SRO in this year. So if a few people can't make it for the last night, for Wednesday Hanukkah, if people want to make it, I'm happy to have the shiur, or we could do it Thursday. Wednesday's the last night of Hanukkah. We do Thursday. I know women don't like Thursday, right? What? Are people willing to come next Wednesday? I mean, two Wednesdays. Last night of Hanukkah? Okay. You don't think we should do it? I'll consult with my superiors and I'll let people know.
No, I'm not. It always comes up the last night of Hanukkah.
Oh, yeah?
But at least we're acknowledging with the criteria.
Next Wednesday for sure not, and I'll next Wednesday for sure not, I'll send out an email. Okay. Next Thursday is also Thanksgiving, right? It's both Hanukkah and Erev Thanksgiving. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yosef is Ben Zekunim. The Targum Munkala says that he's a smart person, right? Ben Zekunim is Chacham. He doesn't seem to be very smart in the beginning of the parsha. I mean, we have. There's always some boys in the yeshiva that don't know social boundaries well, right? And they irritate and annoy others. So you have Yosef coming in, and he knows if he's smart, he's got to know his brothers don't want to hear this. The Targum Munkala says from Zikna, Bar Hakim. The Targum Munkala says on Ben Zekunim, he's a Bar Hakim. And doesn't seem to be so smart for telling these dreams. Okay, so I'll regalachas to this really defines who Yosef is. Usually the first time you introduce to somebody defines the very essence of the person. Now we all know that the great tension between Yosef and the brothers had to do with the previous history in the family. Right? We already had 3 generations of patriarchs, of Avos, in which only one person was chosen and everybody else was rejected. Avraham had 2 children. There was only Yitzchok, because Yitzchok was the next Av, the second Av. And then there had to be a 3rd generation Av. We explained this with when we spoke about Rivka and Yitzchok and the Nevuah, Shnei Goyim Bevitnech, that the era of Bnei Yisrael hadn't started yet. 3 generations Bnei Yisrael hadn't started. Because once the era of Bnei Yisrael starts, or Bnei Avraham, or Bnei Yitzchok, whatever it would have been called, of course all the children are part. There's no matter of choosing. The chash that the brothers, the Achim, had against Yosef was that Yosef is trying to do to us what Daddy did to Uncle Esav. That all of the circumstantial evidence of Yaakov grooming Yosef, giving him special attention, giving him this pasim, which was some type of a leadership cloak, and Yosef having dreams from their perspective, delusionary grandeur of being the leader and the one in charge, that he is trying to push us out of Klal Yisrael, just like Yaakov pushed out Esav, and just like Sarah pushed out Yishmael. It's al regalachas. This is what they were choshesh. Now, if we go back to Yosef's birth, so the pasuk says that one of the reasons that his mother Rachel called him Yosef, because she said, Yosef Hashem li ben acher. May Hashem give me another son. It's a strange name to give a child. I mean, you can need therapy for many, many years if you're only called, that's nice that I have you, but I don't want another one. I'm naming you Yosef Hashem li ben acher. What kind of a name is this? So Lemai says like this. Yaakov and Yitzchok, in order to be avos, they had to be excluders. Yitzchok ended up being an excluder for Yishmael, even though he wasn't the vehicle, it was his mother, but he ended up excluding Yishmael. Yaakov ended up excluding Esav, and he actually played a pivotal role in that excluding of Esav, both by buying the Bechorah off of him and by the time of the brachas. Rachel, on the other hand, herself was the ultimate includer. You can't imagine a greater includer than what Rachel did for her sister Leah. Can you imagine? It's mind-boggling what she did for her sister Leah. It would have been so easy for her to exclude Leah. And she just be passive, don't give her the simanim. And it's gone. She went ahead and she actively gave her the simanim. According to some opinions, she actually never even told Leah. So she was the ultimate includer. Right? Rachel knew that she was the Akeres Habayis. And one of the reasons she was the Akeres Habayis was because she gave Leah, and she embraced her husband having 4 wives, and to include all of them. And her very, very worst nightmare was that her son, who was the spiritual Bechor of Yaakov Avinu, because she was the Akeres Habayis, would exclude all of his brothers, and he would be the 4th Av, to the exclusion of the others. That was her worst nightmare. Therefore, she said, I am naming him a Yosef, an includer, and somebody who adds, not subtracts. His very name is Yosef. Yosef Hashem lechem kechem elef pi'omim. Yosef is the source of bracha. Yosef is also a source of bracha because he is a Moisef. Yosef, we know, had a tremendous bracha of alei ayin, that he was impervious to ayin hara. And the reason he was impervious to ayin hara is because he was the essence of ayin tov. He was the essence of ayin tov, because he was an includer. He was an includer. Okay, so Yosef has a dream. He wakes up in the morning and says, "Okay, this is it. This is it. This is a dream. I'm going to go convince my brothers now. I'm going to tell them the dream." She goes to his brother and says, I know, you think that I am here to exclude you and that I am going to build the nation out of myself and that I'm in cahoots with my father, that it's going to come just from me. Listen to this dream that I had. Right? The dream is all of your sheaves are surrounding my sheaf. You're all in the dream. You're all part. Don't you hear what this dream was? And it wasn't a plain dream. It was a nevuah. Nevuah is saying that we're all together in a circle. And they said, and who's in charge? And who's in the middle? He said, Yosef says, come on, guys, you got to be practical. There has to be a leader. There has to be a leader. It's not Camelot. Camelot is fiction. There has to be a leader. Yes, in the dream, I was in the middle. Goodbye, Joe. They're not listening. But he comes and he tries to tell them, you're in the dream. The dream was not to tell them that he's in the middle. The dream was to tell them they're in the dream. They're not excluded. So why does he do it again? He has a second dream. And the second dream is very different than the first. The second dream has his father in it. He comes to them and says, okay, now what are you going to say? Now what are you going to say? You're going to say that I'm excluding my father? That doesn't make sense. He can't be excluded. If he's excluded, I'm excluded, we're all excluded. If he's in the dream together with you, that means you're all part of Klal Yisrael. Falls on deaf ears. But that's what the Ben Zekunim, the Perakim, is trying to do with these dreams, which he knew were nevuos, to convince them that even though he is the leader, and he was the leader, and he was the Mechalkel, he was the ultimate sustainer of all of them, it all came true, but he's trying to convince them that they are part of Klal Yisrael. That was the Perakim. That's why he's trying to share the dreams with them. And that would have been, bringing back to Melachim, that would have been the mission of Yeravam ben Yosef of the 10 tribes. Remember, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Yeravam, Chazor b'cha. Let's be metayel b'Gan Eden. Let's stroll in Gan Eden. You, me, and Ben Yishai. And Yeravam says, Mi v'Rosh. Who's first? Can't do it. You can't do it because Yosef's mission, and the ultimate mission, like we saw with Yecheskel's Nevuah, of the two stones together, is to be the healer and the one who unites. And Yeravam ben Nevat failed that test. We learned it was in 36 years it was supposed to go back. It was everybody's fault. It was Asa's fault. It was their fault.
Besides the sense of also what else a lot of ways to think that he was going to be the excluder, or that anyone would think that he was going to be the leader.
His father was grooming him. I think it was the Kshenis Pasim.
The Kshenis Pasim.
Yeah, and also he was the Bechor. He was the Bechor of Rachel. Yeah.
What about Reuben? And of Leah? Why would that be?
There's a Rashi that says that even all the brothers accepted the fact that Rachel was the Akeres Abayis. We just had the Rashi last week.
Her oldest son was
the Bechor. He was the Bechor. The Bechor has a leadership role. It wasn't defined yet. It ultimately became defined. The next week's parsha becomes defined. He's the Mechalkel. Yosef is the Mechalkel in Golos. Right? And that's Mashiach ben Yosef is probably the first step of taking us out of Golos, because he's the one who sustains us in Golos. That's the very essence of Yosef. What?
Yaakov was also upset, not just the brothers.
Yeah. He was upset that he told them. But the Aviv Shomar Esadovar. The Aviv Shomar Esadovar. He was upset that he told them, but Shomar Esadovar. He was waiting for it to come true. That's what he said. Have a good Shabbos.